Okay, my name is Eric Steen, and I have been working with the Oregon Conservation Partnership. If you don't know what that is, I call it like the superhero group of the Network of Oregon Watershed Councils, OACD, the Oregon Association of Conservation Districts, Ocean, the folks who organize this conference, and Coalition of Oregon Land Trusts, or COLT. And they get together every month and they talk about ways they can support each other, and earned media, PR, is one of those ways that they do that. So has anyone here like gotten emails from me asking, hey, do you have any stories that you might be interested in? Anyone not gotten an email from me? What?
I just started 2 weeks ago.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Well, get my email address or come give me yours, and I'll make sure you get those emails. So I'll talk about this a little bit, but this presentation is for folks who want to use that free service, but also if you just need to know how to better tell your story, then this is also for you, just if you want to do it yourself, sort of thing. So let's see here. I'm curious, how many folks in here are from watershed councils? All right, cool. Great. And districts? Okay. Yeah, probably not any land trust, but okay. What land trust?
It's Hill Conservation.
Okay, sweet. Yeah. I sat in the presentation yesterday and also the OECD one a few months ago. Great stuff. Okay, so let's see here. Okay, I'm not used to this computer. There we go. All right, so the work that you're all doing is really amazing and is very inspiring to me. And I've learned about a lot of really amazing projects over the past, it's almost been 2 years now since I started doing this. Spanish language pesticide training out of Hood River, hundreds if not thousands of beaver dam analogs across eastern Oregon, wildfire mitigation collaborations in Harney County, oak restoration for the less than 5% of remaining oak habitat in the Willamette Valley. There's a watershed council for youth out of Marys River out of Corvallis. There are projects that are really big and exciting and are really easy to tell if you have the right tools for that. There's also a lot of projects that you're all working on that are small and may not seem like newsworthy things that you're doing, but if you find ways to sort of accumulate them all into a larger story, it can be really exciting for somebody to cover. And I should say, I forgot to talk about what earned media attention is in the first place. Earned media is different than like social media or owned media, which would be your website or your newsletters and things like that. Earned media is getting attention from news publications or, podcasts or things like that, television, radio. So that's what I'm working on, is getting attention for people in those outlets. So we have pitched, we pitched 22 stories so far, and out of those 22, 21 of them have been picked up by at least one media outlet. And the coverage that we're getting is not like press release coverage. So press release coverage is when they just take your press release and then they put it on their website. This is more coverage that is much more in depth. Like a reporter or a journalist will interview you, they'll interview one of your, a landowner that you're working with, they'll interview like high school students that you're working with or something like that. So it's been really successful. I've been really impressed with the amount of coverage that we've gotten, and it's because your stories are really great. And but what I've noticed is that not a lot of people know what you do. So soil and water conservation districts, a little hard to explain to people. Watershed councils, a little bit easier, but still, a lot of people don't know what you do. So we try to find ways to tell that story in small chunks over time. Anyway, the service to you is free. You just need to send me notes on what you're working on, what you're excited about, and then I take what you send me, I add it to a list of story opportunities, and then I meet every month with the Oregon Conservation Partnership. We decide how I'm going to, like, what stories I'm going to cover over the next few months, and then if your story is chosen, I interview you. I interview anybody who's going to be a spokesperson for this story. Excuse me, and then I write a pitch and I send it out to media outlets. It's kind of as simple as that. Doesn't require a lot of work on your part, maybe an hour, unless you get like 6 interview requests, which does happen on occasion. So because your work is awesome. So let's see. So it's on average is 12 per year. Yeah, we try to rotate between soil and water conservation districts, watershed councils, and land trust. We try to rotate between stories around the state. Anyway, enough about that free service. I just want you all to know about it, but I think maybe we should try to talk about like how to put together effective stories. So let me make sure I'm not skipping anything too important. Oh, I guess there's a couple other things. Sometimes it takes like I would say that when a story is chosen, it takes about a month for me to, interview you, write something up, get approval for it, and then begin pitching it, more or less a month. So, and then some of these stories, I'm working with Katie on a project that we've been talking about for, probably 6 months now, or actually it's been longer than that. So it comes together over time, and so it's not something that you should expect if you want to send me like a last-minute request. It's probably not going to work. Let's see. Okay. Like I said, 22 stories. 21 of them have been picked up. There's this one outlier story that has never been picked up, and I'm the kind of person who will not let that happen. And so I have this. It's a watershed council of Central Oregon, and we will be revisiting that story soon with some updates because I don't want to have one story that just never went anywhere. We've had 53 stories published and aired through this effort. Since August of 2024, 66% of that is local press. So those are like small publications in small, rural towns or like Portland specific or Sandy specific or Eugene specific. 34% then is statewide press, Oregonian, OPB, Capital Press. 20% of it has been on television. 32% is either OPB or one of its affiliate stations. So I mean, 1/3 of what we're doing is getting onto OPB or an affiliate station. That's pretty badass. Like OPB is incredible to get on. A lot of people listen to it. So, okay. Anyway, the approach that I use when talking about your work is that there is public benefit to. Well, first, I'm sharing my secrets with you. So this is how I approach things, and whether you're, like I said, whether you are wanting to use this free service or whether you're wanting to do this yourself, this is going to help you think through how to tell your story. So there is public benefit to working with private landowners. A lot of tax dollars are used to work with private landowners with the work that you're doing. Sometimes I see comments about like on NRCS posts on social media, for example, like, oh, you supported this project, what % of their land do I own now? And it's like, well, it's really important to do this work for the public, protecting water and soil. So anyway, I approach all stories with that in mind. Partnerships with landowners are key to creating change. A lot of the land here in Portland is owned privately. So if you do want to make changes, you got to work with private landowners, period. Like, that's all there is to it. Diverse focuses across the state are all pieces to the larger puzzle. Whether you're on the coast or in Eastern Oregon, you're all working towards like a similar goal. And that can come in handy sometimes. So, and I'll explain that a little bit. Okay, effective storytelling. All right, so it's really important to craft human-centered, relatable stories. I'm going to talk a little bit about what that means. Focus on real-world impact, the benefits to the public, results, and how you're engaging with local communities, like a group of residents, high schoolers, or a number of landowners up and down a stream. You do that instead of focusing on how much a project costs or how much money you've secured in funding, but very specific goals and impacts in very specific locations. I appreciated what Dr. Leslie King was saying yesterday, and I'm going to get into this a little bit on language and stuff like that, but you used some really great examples about how we measure success, like how many large wood placements, that's one way that I've seen watershed councils talk about a success of a project, but it doesn't mean anything to anyone. Anyway, I'm going to, we'll get there, but sorry, I feel like I'm a little all over the place. Okay, so showcase personal stories from people affected by your work. I'm going to have examples of this, but essentially your work becomes less abstract when somebody else is able to talk about what it means to them. Connect your work to timely issues or challenges. For example, in the late summer, the media always turns to fire season. If we've been pitching stories about how your work has helped keep water on the land and helped more of the soil soak up water and things like that, if we tell them that over and over and over again, and then all of a sudden it's wildfire season and we can say, hey, look at what the restoration work has done, they're gonna look at to you for your expertise there. Okay. Hold on a second. I don't know why I'm just like really nervous today. Okay, so thinking beyond traditional press releases, we'll talk about this a little bit more later too, but essentially press releases can feel cold. Sometimes they're important. It's like the cold hard facts, again, like what's coming up and what you're doing, like there's things, it's just kind of boring. Sometimes they're important, but you got to find ways to warm them up and make them relatable through like supplemental storytelling. I try to ditch press releases completely. I just don't like them, and I'd much rather tell a story by showing specific people being affected by your work. You're looking for stories within a story, smaller narratives that add depth to larger goals and vision. It's kind of related to like how your work has affected somebody personally, and it might even be the same thing. But it's easy to get excited about big picture projects that you're working on. These can be so big at times, though, that it's actually difficult to comprehend what you're actually working on. So, for example, if you're working with 40 landowners to help protect an entire watershed, like that sounds heroic, but no one knows what what is the actual work that you're talking about. Finding a smaller story to help tell that larger story is really important to do. That's just something to remember. And that's why press releases can be boring sometimes, because they tell the bigger picture. Okay. I'm just going to zoom through these because I have examples of each one. Find fresh, utilize data and statistics in narrative format. Find fresh angles to present existing and older work. Celebrate collaboration, but focus on your unique contributions. Some of you are going to hate this one. And then offer reporters firsthand experiences to deepen their coverage. Okay, so, all right, let me make sure I know what I'm talking about here. How does this go away, this thing up top? I just realized this thing up top is up there.
So the top right where it says more,
Okay.
there's near the middle, high floating meeting controls.
Thank you, Ian.
You got it, Eric.
Is that your daughter there?
There it is.
Yeah.
Can you say hi, Ren?
Hi, Red.
She's taking notes, don't worry.
Oh.
You should be nervous.
How old are you, Red?
Eric, ask you a question.
How old are you?
3.
Yeah, great. My son's 4. It's a beautiful age.
Yeah.
All right, so, okay, I'm going to give some examples of each of those bullet points so they don't feel abstract. Marys River Watershed Council, they started a youth program called the Youth Watershed Council. High schoolers apply to be part of it, and there are monthly opportunities to get involved with either on-the-ground field work or educating the public on watershed issues. So it's a pretty cool story. The Youth Watershed Council, for this particular story, they're working on a place called Shot Pouch Creek up in the hills in Philomath. And this is an area where Marys River had been working with 16 landowners across 15 years. And the story about their overarching work would have been great. And that's kind of like how they framed this was like, we want to talk about Shot Pouch Creek. And so you really have to kind of dig in at that point because I don't know, like how do you get somebody hooked on how do you get a journalist hooked on a story? You need to find something that they can latch onto. So it was much more effective to talk about like high schoolers walking across these logs. I mean, this is an amazing picture of a stream bed. I mean, I've never seen anything like it personally, you know, and a lot of people are going to think like that's a total mess, but this is an important part of conservation work right here. And so the journalists got to go out there and interview the high schoolers. They took a bunch of pictures. They got reels on the Oregon Field Guide, and the reporter also made her own reels and stuff. And this is like a 4.5-minute story. And then it's also a readable article. And so, yeah, the students were out there planting 1,200 willows and doing some science experiments. They told the reporters why this work was important to them, why it was fun. And the reporter also, of course, digs into Shot Pouch Creek and what it is and who that particular landowner is and all that stuff. So it's an opportunity to get the message across about what you're doing. But you don't have to like frame it as, see this huge big thing that we're working on. And if they were ever working on Shot Pouch Creek again in some other format, they could pitch it again. And so then all of a sudden, people in Philomath start to realize, oh man, Shot Pouch Creek is like this really cool place that the Watershed Council is working on. Okay. Oh, we're stuck. You had this issue earlier, didn't you? It's because I took this thing away. Yeah, probably. Does anyone have a joke?
Quick question.
Yeah.
You mentioned in the beginning that after you put together a story, it takes time, but then it gets approved before it gets published. Who does that final approval? Is it
The land trust in your case, the Watershed Council, or the district. So I don't send anything out to the media that hasn't been greenlit by you. Yeah, yeah. So seems to be.
what's your company? Is it Green or something?
Yeah, Forest Green, and my email address is Eric at.
What is your company?
Marketing and PR services. Yeah, yeah. Seems to be an issue. It's stuck. It's like not moving forward. Okay. I just clicked it. Yeah. Okay. This is a story about the Neskowin Regional Water District and how they are purchasing forest land around the watershed. This story was published in the Capitol Press, as you can see here. I'm afraid to do this now. I see what you like. Why you were afraid yesterday, but I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna try to hide it again and see what happens. Okay. Yeah. Let's see. Okay. Wish me luck. All right. So this was published in the Capitol Press, as you can see, but also on OPB. before we pitched these stories, there's this large press release put out by Sustainable Northwest, Coalition of Oregon Land Trusts. I think OWEB probably was involved in that as well. OWEB provided $5 million for 6 communities to purchase properties, make steps towards purchasing properties, or even to repay loans on properties that they had purchased. And all with it's purchasing the properties to protect the watershed. So it's actually a pretty amazing story. Somehow no one picked up the press release though, like not a single media outlet picked up the press release. And after this story, this is why I'm convinced that press releases just kind of suck. So what we did was we looked at the press release and we picked one of the communities to feature in it. We interviewed the Water District along with North Coast Land Conservancy. It's a land trust member of Coalition of Oregon Land Trusts. And then we, in the story, we spoke to the reasons why Neskowin needed this land. The community runs out of water during the dry season, which also happens to be the heavy tourist season. We talked about specific ways that owning and managing the land is going to increase water retention during the drier months. And so basically Neskowin needs this, and that's what we pointed out in the pitch is why they need it. And then, so that deeper story isn't really something that you can go into in a press release, which is why it's important to supplement a press release with these extra details. So if a reporter's not reading in between the lines when they get a press release, and all reporters are they're like really, really busy. They're swamped. And so helping spell it out a little bit is really important thing to do. Or at least it's worked, you know. I mentioned the North Coast Land Conservancy, that they're one of the members of the Oregon Conservation Partnership, so we had to make sure that they were worked into this story as well. So what we did was we showed that they played an instrumental role in facilitating the acquisition by securing funding for a forest stewardship plan. I'm not sure exactly what that means, but I'm sure some of you know what that means. And then they help navigate the complex funding sources. I know a little bit more about what that means. Anyway, if the press release was in communication, we probably would have never seen anything about this on any media outlets. It would have been on Colt's, newsletter or on their blog or something like that, and that's fine. But it's not good enough, And so, just digging in, zooming in on a story. How do you tell the human part of this?
Wait, press escape.
Okay, I did.
Can you advance now?
No.
Not even if you put the.
Oh, I knew it!
What if you arrow up or arrow down?
Arrow up, arrow down. No.
Side to left, side to left.
Yeah, he did this thing where he went like this.
You did some kind of magic.
You were talking about it.
Just punch it.
Oh my goodness.
You're staying here for the whole presentation. Yeah, might as well just stay.
Click on it, and then there you go. Click onto the screen, and then the arrow keys should work again. Yeah.
Should I give it one more shot?
Moving forward and back before he leaves.
Yeah. Hold on a second.
So
Okay.
click on the screen.
Okay. First, I'm gonna. Okay, so it's not moving.
Yeah, click on the screen.
Clicking on the screen. Okay. All right. Sorry, all these distractions here is turning my 3-hour presentation into a 3.5-hour presentation. I'm just kidding. I make jokes about that. Okay, so let's see. Effective storytelling. Connect your work to timely issues or challenges. Okay. Gillum County, wildfires and invisible fences. When wildfire tore through Gillum County 2 years ago now, August 2024. Yeah. The SWCD looked at the cost of fences and the time it was going to take to rebuild them. It's like years of time and $9 million or something like that. And they convinced a number of ranchers to switch to virtual fences. Happened immediately and was about $200,000. From a conservation standpoint, I'm sure you all know some of this stuff, but you know, you can keep the cattle off of areas that experience erosion from the fire. You can mob graze invasives at the right time. I'm sure there's a lot more to it. The timing on this was really important. Every publication at the time was talking about wildfires. All the stories were bad, and there were no positive stories at all. So this story, when we presented it to OPB, they jumped on it immediately. It happened very quickly. I know that after a wildfire or during a wildfire, getting on the phone with me probably isn't the thing that you're thinking about doing, and that's okay. I think Herb sent me either a text or maybe like a half paragraph about what he was doing. I gave him a call. We talked for 10 to 15 minutes. I wrote something up. He approved it. And then I sent it to OPB. Like, it was extremely informal, you know. And you can do stuff like that. And it works. So, yeah. Let's see, I think that's connecting it to timely issues. I think that makes sense there. All right. Okay, it worked. East Multnomah Soil and Water Conservation District. These are two different stories, not about the same thing at all, but also about the same initiative that they run. This is not part of Oregon Conservation Partnership work. This is separate from it, but still, it very much applies here. They have a farmland protection initiative where they're looking for opportunities to bring the cost of farmland down for the next generation of farmers. These are, people who are struggling with land access. They're younger and it's expensive out there. So essentially the district buys high value farmland threatened by development. They protect it with a working land easement, and then they sell it at a reduced price because the district holds the development rights. So that's essentially how that works. And yeah, they call it the Farmland Protection Initiative. The district has some really helpful data about farmland loss throughout Oregon, but also across its own district over the last 75 years, because as you all can imagine, if you don't live out there, the urbanization just keeps moving east. So, but that data and their initiative, it makes a lot more sense if you can actually speak with some of the farmers that are affected by this and who are basically engaging in their programs. So in the first story on the left, OPB ran an article, and they aired a story about a couple who is starting their farm business on their new property, which they purchased from East Multnomah, and the couple spoke to OPB about how difficult it is to afford land and how helpful the district had been in navigating the process. And the second story, there were two television segments that ran about the Black Oregon Land Trust, which they've purchased about 4 or 5 properties. A lot of them are in the same, just like down the street from each other, 2 of which were protected by East Multnomah. Bolt's vision is to ease accessibility for black farmers. So they're helping create markets. They're starting an incubator farm. They've got this community hub, resource sharing, and they're also helping their farmers find land. So this was a great story as well. Besides these 2 stories about the Farmland Initiative, there's been 2 others as well, and I'm sure this year we're probably going to talk about 3 or 4 more. So again, it's kind of like a constant drumbeat about the Farmland Initiative, but we don't talk about the farmland initiatives per se. We talk about the individual farmers and how they're being affected, and so people in East Multnomah can get excited about how their tax dollars are being spent. I know that I'm happy about it. So, yeah. Okay, let's talk about tide gates. Find fresh angles to present existing and older work. I think this is really helpful because a lot of you have fantastic work that happened in the past, and maybe it didn't get the attention you would like it to get. And once something has happened, it's just less newsworthy, period. So, but you can breathe new life into it. When this story was presented to me, the Palouse Tide Gate had already been built and finished for a while. It is a new and improved type of tide gate. Maybe you all know this, but to me, I was like, wow, this is really cool. It's a new and improved type of tide gate. It's much more efficient and beneficial than previous tide gates. I could get into it because I was so fascinated by this. But in and of itself, the Palouse Tide Gate could have been its own story. I don't think that it ever got any attention. I don't know if Coos Watershed Association ever tried to get it attention, but basically, when I found out about the story, there was a couple things happening that made it a little bit more relevant. One, let me make sure, I've lost my place here. Oh, okay. Yeah, so when the Coos Watershed Association started talking to me about this, they started talking about tide gate infrastructure up and down the coast. All of it's built at the same time. All of it's failing at the same time. Plus the old tide gate designs are problematic for fish. They're problematic for farms. And there's the set of circumstances could cause some major issues across the coast. So we decided to lead the pitch with that. Like, there's a serious issue here, and there's a solution to it. There's a whole new type of tide gate that solves a lot of these problems. But the second thing that stood out at that moment was this was April 2025, so DOGE was like making cuts across the country, and there was a lot of concern that the work on updating these tide gates was going to come to a screeching halt, and so that was something that we were able to also lead with. This story was picked up by Jefferson Public Radio, an affiliate with OPB, and OPB liked it so much that they ran it across the state as well. Okay, so anyway, finding fresh angles to present your existing work. It was the DOGE cuts, and then also just recontextualizing it, not so much about the tide gate, but about the failing infrastructure. All of that sort of worked together so that we could tell the story a year after it was built or something. Okay, here's the one I'm not sure you guys are going to like. I mean, the story's great, but this part about celebrating your unique contributions. Okay, let's see. Celebrate collaboration, but focus on your unique contributions. So my observation here is that everyone in watershed councils and soil and water conservation districts, I'm not supposed to use the word everyone, but you know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
Most of you all. You like a huge list of all your collaborative partners. And I mean, I imagine a lot of you are probably in communications, so you probably know about this, but like there's like some need that people have to like get that whole paragraph in there, like as if that's going to like check some box of like, well, we mentioned, and maybe sometimes you have to do that. I get it, and I understand that you want to like show off your collaborations and the way that people have helped you or the money that you got and all that stuff. But as somebody reading some of that, I just like glaze over and I move on. It immediately kills my interest in something. So when I work with you, try to get you to change that. This particular story is from the Hood River Soil and Water Conservation District. They have a Spanish language pesticide training that is absolutely amazing. You all need to read this story. And I'm not going to get into all the details here, but I think what I want to talk about is that let me see. I met with Chris, the director or manager on this project, and she really, really was intense about like wanting to give credit to as many of those partners as possible. And I resist that, like I just do. And so after working with her to help build a structure for this story, there's a lot of sensitivities around this story. It was coming out right as the time as like ICE was starting to do some raids, so we actually had to like cut back on some of our pitching, because one of the TV stations was like, "We love this story. Also, can we talk to anyone about how the ICE raids are affecting this?" And I was like, "No, like this, we're not doing that." And I mean, ultimately that was Chris's call, but like, I just told the reporter to like, we're not going to work with you on this. So anyway, so I put together a story, and what we ended up doing was we had a couple honorable mentions. I mean, she's working with like hospitals out there. She's got like all sorts of affiliations, and there's nonprofits. There's like, I mean, I can't even remember them all, but it's a big paragraph list of all the people who supported her on this. And so we did. What's that? Oh, I thought I heard something. Couple honorable mentions were nice, and we built that into the narrative rather than just like tacking it on at the end or in the middle or at the top. We like built in how they've been helpful and things like that, but just a couple of them. And then the story ended up working well. She decided that worked for her, and it did get interest. And the Columbia Gorge News, who's her local paper, did a very good job with it and didn't ask anything that was inappropriate. Okay, what goes into a pitch? This is a little bit more pragmatic here, so I apologize if that's not what you're here for. But yeah, what time is it? Trying to see if maybe I should scoot it along, huh?
9:45.
Yeah. All right. I'll just read this out loud. A few paragraphs in an email introducing the story idea. Call to action for the specific media person. Hey, come follow some high schoolers around on this in this stream, and interview some of them. Things like that. You want to have a spokesperson or two lined up, and you invite them to join. You invite them to talk to those spokespeople. You can link to a press kit. Usually I say, I have photos for you if you're interested in it. And then I usually, if I don't hear from a person that I pitch to, I follow up with them in about a week. There's something on here that I didn't really include. I always tailor my pitches to individual reporters. It's a lot of extra work, but it goes a long way, and it can really help if you're pitching to like Alejandro Figueroa of OPB. He's the ag reporter. Like, you don't want to send him something about watershed councils necessarily, about stream beds and things like that. You really need to understand what he's writing about and say, here's why I think you'll be interested in this. Okay, so let me make sure I'm not missing anything too important there, but I do want to yeah, if you have questions about the difference between a pitch and a press release, you can ask me a question, but hopefully I've explained that a little bit. Okay, yeah, I think we'll move on. So more examples from the Oregon Conservation Partnership. We timed a beaver pitch to hit just as the beaver bills were going through the legislature last year. We solicited stories from districts, councils, land trusts across the state and shared beaver-related conservation work. These ranged from constructing dozens of beaver dam analogs to updating BRAT with Oregon data to stewardship plans to hopefully bring beavers back to a site that they unexpectedly showed up to and then unexpectedly left. And then, yeah, the stories were from every corner of the state. We had about 5 of them published. And by themselves, the stories may not have made big waves, although I do think that media outlets like to talk about beavers. We presented it as a diverse set of projects and practices that were happening across the state. So it made it enticing when, you know, out in some like rural town, we were able to point to a beaver project happening near that town. And so they became, oh man, this is like a statewide thing, and this is what's happening locally for me. They were more likely to pick it up. Yeah, so let's see.
Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, nice. Were you there that day?
Yeah.
Nice. I'd love to meet you. Okay, so Salmon Watch on the left, Garlic Mustard on the right. The image on the left is about Salmon Watch. It's a program that brings youth out to rivers to answer the important question of, is this a healthy river for salmon? Students observe and conduct science experiments, and the story on the right is about Garlic Mustard, which has moved into Portland Metro and is a serious threat to soil health. I'm showing both of these because there's a seasonality to them. And Salmon Watch happens every fall. Garlic Mustard happens every April. And so what you can do is just find interesting ways to repitch the same stories over and over again. Salmon Watch was on OPB. Next year it could be on the Corvallis Advocate. The year after that it could be in a Eugene-based TV station because they cover Corvallis. You can find ways to make it happen year over year over year. And then with Garlic Mustard, everyone wants to know what should and shouldn't be growing in their area. And so there are ways to repitch that and make your organization look like the thought leader in how to tackle this problem. Okay, Jefferson and Deschutes, both Central Oregon stories, both about funding. The Jefferson story, Jefferson County story, is about how the district and the irrigation district are working to increase efficiency with farmers, but they aren't getting funding. They aren't getting funding dollars for a variety of reasons. So Ellen out there, she organized a tour of a seed cleaning factory and then brought farmers in with adjacent land right across the parking lot from the seed factory. And we invited media to come out and provided some background information. This was covered in the Bend Bulletin and the Madras Pioneer. So this was just all stuff that Ellen already had like going, and we just kind of presented it to them. You know, it takes a little bit of framing, but still, it was super interesting to the people who came out to it. And then the Deschutes Soil and Water, they had gotten their tax base recently, and then they received a lot of attention leading up to that vote. And so a story about how they are spending tax dollars, I thought would be really interesting. And as it turns out, there was a fire that swept through there. One of the first things that they did with their new, with all their new money, is they created a fund for landowners to reseed and do some weed treatment type stuff. I don't know if that's herbicide or pesticide or what it is. I don't really care either. But I mean, I care, but like it doesn't matter to me, you know. The story is that they're spending your tax dollars in a way that's really beneficial for the entire county. And the Source picked it up, and they just like were like, you see how great this is? Like, we made this decision together, and they were fast. Look at this, tax money put to quick use for flat tire affected landowners. Like, that is badass. Okay. Priest Toll and federal funding stories. These are both out of Wheeler County, and they're completely different stories. The first one was a project that Cassie at Wheeler wanted to make sure that her district got attention for, because BLM was getting all this attention for this campground, but actually Cassie and the district like did all the conservation work and all the planning and stuff around this. So we worked with BLM to make sure that it got into their pitch, and then we made sure that the the reporter that did this, like, I don't know, 5-6 minute video got to interview Cassie, and she did a great job with it. The other one is interesting because well, I'm blanking here. Okay, yeah. We've been sending so many great stories out to OPB that they've begun reaching out to us. I mean, yeah.
They're like bugging the
Yeah,
crap
they call Andrea, they call me, they call a few other people here now, and they really appreciate hearing so many stories about the work of districts and watershed councils that they, like, I'm getting texts from Christian Podenvinsel and like, it's weird, you know? And so, anyway, I forget the exact context behind this, but Alejandro, he like reached out to me and he said, hey, how is this, like, how is these funding cuts? I think it was CREP. I don't remember now, but how are these funding cuts affecting, the districts out there in Eastern Oregon? Cassie had just written something, so she had sent it to me. I just like, I mean, I didn't even count this as one of my projects. I just like literally connected them and that's it. So the point I want to say is, like, if you are getting your work in front of people, they will reach out to you when it's time for them to cover something that, and they'll remember you. Okay, I'm trying to be quick. Maybe I'll just zoom through this. Things to avoid talking about your grant dollars as a focus. Emphasize results instead of funding. No one knows what $5 million looks like. I wish I knew what $5 million looks like. I mean, maybe some of the directors knows what $5 million does, but I don't. And so, all right, 10 minutes. Unrelatable ways that you measure success. Shout out numbers of large wood placed in the stream. Doesn't tell me anything about anything. I want to know why large wood is important in the first place. And so if you can talk about that without using vernacular like that, then you're going to get people's attention. Numbers of acres that you protected, it's another unit of measurement that means nothing to anybody. Why is it important to protect this land? Jargon, I think you kind of get the picture there. Being vague, I talked about that. If you got a watershed landscape scale project, and you're working with 40 landowners, zoom in on a particular landowner, zoom in on somebody that's affected by your work. Photos for reports, I won't get into that too much. You all know, the people that you work with, they need to take better pictures. You all do a great job, I'm sure. Waiting until the completion of a project, show projects that are in planning or process phase. And then dilly-dallying. Once a reporter bites on a story, you need to act right away. Like, don't like try to push it off or anything like that. If you signed up, if you pitched something to them or had me pitch something to them, like, you should make sure that you follow up on that, or else they will not be interested in working with you again, and they'll be less inclined to work with me again. Okay. Anyway, you saw this slide at the beginning. Oh wait, no, you didn't. Anyway, I think I told you all this stuff. Email me. Oh, the one thing, this one right here. Anytime you have this moment where you're like working on something and you think, damn, I do such awesome stuff. Have your moment, like, enjoy it, and then open up your phone, send me an email, and say why you're having this amazing moment. I want to know about it because that's probably something that other people should know about as well. Yeah, we're good enough. The service through the Oregon Conservation Partnership is free to you. Email me anytime. Don't wait for my emails every quarter. Send me ideas all the time, and I'll add it to the list, and we discuss it every month. So, questions? Yeah.
I noticed in all the stories that you shared as examples, there were like really great titles to those stories.
Yeah.
Do you have suggestions for, say a reporter comes and interviews members of your staff and writes this great story, but then they have the very less than desirable title?
Yeah.
How do you avoid that?
You can't. I mean,
You can't even like ask you, like,
not
the gist of what you're gonna
call it?
Not a title. I mean, they do it for a reason. You know, they're trying to get clicks. So there may be some publications that try to do that more than others. Like the Portland Mercury loves, you know, clickbait type stuff. So yeah, if you frame up a story a certain way, you try to just have that in mind, and you can even, when you pitch it, you could have like a header that has an idea of a, but ultimately, once they've published it, like you can correct some things, but asking them to change the title is probably too much. Yeah. And they'll probably be annoyed at you if you do ask. Yeah. Just being honest. Yeah.
My question is, does the type of media matter? Like you guys are saying on things, like there's maps, the story maps, and event videos, and interactive stuff. Like, so does that limit you as to what you're trying to do in terms of your PR services?
Not necessarily. Like I was thinking about your presentation, and I was thinking about how I would frame up a pitch to OPB for something like that. And I wouldn't direct OPB to look at your story map, but I would try to summarize like what the new Sandy River Watershed Council is and highlight some of the like really positive, amazing things that you're working on, and also like that you've embedded diversity, equity, inclusion, justice, like into the framework of your watershed council. So my pitch would be something more along those lines. And then if you get a bite, then you could like say, here's a bunch of information about it. But most likely they'd want to hear from you through an interview or something like that. Does that answer your question? Or
So what I'm wondering is, like, the things that I think are starting to move into watershed councils, like using mapping, using drones, like to get better, like aerial footage of like before, after, things like that. Like, some of the things that you don't see, and you don't really see them in kind of the stories that I see that you've shown us.
yeah.
Like, you know, how, is that like a different type of media? Is it like YouTube? Like,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, it's completely, I would say it's different. I mean, you can always OPB likes to take their own photos and do their own video and stuff, so they'll probably not take your footage that you get, but maybe some other outlet could. But ultimately, that's probably better for your owned media, so it could go in your newsletters, it could go on your social media. You could you can make a movie, a 15-minute movie, and play it at a theater. I don't know if Sandy has a theater, but you know, you could have some sort of community get together and do something like that. That's what I would recommend. Yeah.
So I haven't had this problem, but I know some of the staff that I've worked with have had this problem with the state. Is how do you? Are there tips or tricks to avoid being misquoted?
Yeah, that's a tough one. There are some. I don't know. The quality of the reporter is important. Like, I mean, I think even OPB might misquote people every now and again, you know? And I think that their quality is really high. But I've seen out in, like, Wallowa County, people just, like, it's like you don't even use the right quotes at all, you know? Like, you made up stuff. And one of the stories in Sisters, it's like, I don't even know how to describe, like, they just, like, totally fumbled it, you know? Talking to a reporter afterwards about, like, hey, you misrepresented what I was saying, and here's why. I think that that is an okay conversation to have, depending on the situation. If it's a small publication in a rural town or something, you don't want to like get on their bad side because they might be the only person writing about this stuff. So you might just need to let things slide. But like, yeah.
Just on that note too, is it appropriate to ask, because I've been misquoted in the past, like by the Washington Post misquoted.
Oh, yeah.
So that was scary. But can you ask them to send the piece pre-publication this week and make sure?
You can always ask, but they'll never do it, yeah. You can always ask. You can ask for questions in advance, they won't send that either, so. Yeah, I do think if you've been misquoted in a way that misrepresents you, you should do a letter to the editor or to the journalist or whoever wrote it and clarify things, because maybe they can correct it at the bottom of the article, or make a note about how it was corrected, or maybe they can add something into their next publication. I mean, it sucks because less people are going to see it, but still, yeah. You also just got to think about if it's okay. Is it okay to let it slide because you want the relationship? Because some of them might get hurt by it. I mean, but they hurt you. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, you just have to balance relationships. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, you talked about not waiting until project completion to kind of start this process. And that's something our district has encountered some issues with, where I'll reach out to reporters and I'll immediately get fights of, let me talk to a landowner, let me get out on the property. And it's like, this program launched today, we're not even there, and they want X, Y, Z, and when I can't provide it, I have felt that it's kind of soiled the relationship and they're no longer interested. So do you have any tips for kind of a timeline of keeping that ball rolling and moving and when to insert yourself?
Every project's going to be completely different, but what I would say is if you can, all projects have like their own timelines and their operations and when things are going to go into implementation and things like. If you can work with those people to also build in a media plan and like a communications plan, that would be the most ideal scenario. So you just want to think through like, hey, 6 months out, we should begin preparing these things. And then 3 weeks out, we're going to have the press release ready or whatever, and I'm going to invite media. And so that means on June 21st, I want to make sure that the landowner's available and all that stuff. I would say try to do that and see if that works. And then if it's not something you're able to implement, then just see if you can. It's harder to do after the fact, but if you can basically try to get all the people who are involved and say, how about we tell this reporter to meet on June 21st instead of, hey, are you available right now, sort of thing. I think that's the way to do it. Yeah.
I just wanted to share a quick tidbit of something that worked really well. So I'm with the F11 Soil and Water Conservation District for the state board piece of property last year. We were there a couple of articles about while we were in process without actually talking to anyone in the district. Yes. And even after they knew that they had a media person and people would talk to them, they're like, yeah, no, we're just going to see what we want. And so I reached out to my contacts at KLCC and said, hey, the registered gardener read a couple of articles without talking to us. How would you like to run an article and talk to us? We'll get you in touch with the landowner, and we'll get you in touch with these people, and we'll make ourselves available. And we do a little station and we post about our purchase of the farm.
That's awesome. Yeah, offering an exclusive.
Yeah. So if you find yourself misrepresented and misquoted by one local media outlet, go to another one and tell them that you're going to give them more than you gave the other one.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's good. Thank you all.
Thanks for all
Yeah.
your time.